Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we're discussing the Primarchs, who denied the gods of chaos. General spoiler warning to begin, as today we will be referencing events from across the Horus Heresy series. As always, I really recommend you read the stories for yourself first, without spoilers, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Now, the Horus Heresy was defined by the Primarchs betraying the Emperor. I mean, that's where the very name arises, the Horus Heresy. And it's undoubtedly the most tragic thing about the whole saga. The various and avoidable reasons the traitor Primarchs would fall, and fall so deeply. Especially those that would end up ascending to demonhood. An eternity of slavery. However, it could all have turned out much differently had certain other Primarchs not resisted the lure of the gods. Because the ruinous powers aren't picky, they will take as many Primarchs as they can get. And in some cases, they even approached other Primarchs before the ones they became so identified with. So, which other Primarchs were approached by the gods of chaos? Well, I think the most famous is obviously Sanguinius, denying the offer of the Blood God. And this transpired within the novel Fear to Tread. Now, this came about at the earliest stages of the heresy, with the still seemingly loyal War Master dispatching the Angel and the entirety of his legion to the Cygnus Prime cluster. There they would be ambushed and face the full wrath of the Tides of Chaos, as the War Master attempted to take out his greatest rival, and one-time closest brother. However, as the greater demon Kabanda emerged and clashed blades with the Angel, rather than simply attempting to destroy the Primarch, he placed an offer on the table, on behalf of the Blood God Khorne. With a thunderous bellow, Kabanda reeled back, and threw out a blow with his whip. The fanged tips cracked as they arced towards the Primarch's face. Sanguinius pivoted, faster than thought, and caught the barbs in his free hand. The lash writhed as if it were a living thing, coiling around his wrist, cracking the ceramite sheath of his gauntlet. He gave a violent tug and pulled the demon off balance, leading a hammer blow punch with the pommel of his blade that shattered tusks and drew torrents of Kabanda's black blood. The beast stumbled backwards, at first hissing, then laughing. "You fight well," it said, spitting out broken teeth. "No ephemeral has ever cut me before. But I cannot be bested. Why do you try? Join us instead. You are a creature of blood as much as I am. You already walk the scarlet path, little angel. We both know it. Come witness Khorne's full glory. Embrace what lies within you. You could be so exalted. A champion." Sanguinius sneered. "First the other one, now you. Are all your kind so in love with the sounds of your own voice?" He slashed at the creature, knocking it back, drawing an angry yowl. "A curse on you then," spat the demonic warlord. "If you refuse my offer, then know this. I will destroy all that you hold dear, and plague your sons for as long as your legion exists." "That is no threat," said the Primarch. "My sons will always be ready to kill your kind, until the death of the last star in the heavens." Of course, the Blood God would know of the fury within the Angel, and there's absolutely a bit of majesty in Sanguinius's declaration that his sons will forever fight the forces of chaos. Not a moment's hesitation or doubt in his mind, which of course just feels all the more epic when you've got Dante still kicking ass 10,000 years later. Now, even in the highly unlikely outcome of Sanguinius actually accepting Kabanda's offer here, This wouldn't have stopped Angron later entering the Blood God's service either. Again, like I said, the ruinous powers are greedy. They'd take every Primarch if they could. I certainly don't believe that this was an either-or situation. Khorne wanted Sanguinius, and he absolutely still wanted Angron. However, I do think we'd all agree, Sanguinius would absolutely be Khorne's greatest champion over Angron. And it is pretty telling in itself that Sanguinius received this offer first. Could you imagine a demon-ascended Sanguinius? Now that would be a sight. A demonic fallen angel. Now, Khorne isn't alone in seeking to achieve the Blood Angel's service either, as Slaanesh too covets the Angel's descendants still, famously offering service for a cure to their flaw. However, just as their Primarch here, the Sons of Sanguinius remain true, still. Now, one of the lesser known approaches of Chaos was actually to Perturabo, by the grandfather Nurgle. And this one too was before Mortarion entered Nurgle's service. Now this transpired in the novel Slaves to Darkness, during Perturabo's quest to bring Angron and the World Eaters back to Horus's side for the assault on Terra. During the Iron Warriors' travels, their navigators became blinded by an unknown power. It wasn't the ruin storm that was engulfing the galaxy, because they were still visible. It was something that could only be described as a pressure in the warp. And as Perturabo and the Iron Warriors were reacting to this situation, they were hailed by an arriving fleet of Sons of Horus. Allowing a gunship to board, it immediately became clear that these were no ordinary Sons of Lupercal, however, as the ship looked akin to the future Death Guard, and the lone marine who descended its ramp no better. Rusted, covered in growths, boils, scabs and legions, reeking of foul disease, it was clear this fleet had become embraced or enslaved by Nurgle. The marine has no name, but he mentions he used to go by Kalek, a legionary not seen for 3 years according to the Iron Warrior database. He states they are of the storm, its sevenfold winds. Where it orders, they go. And they have come here to speak specifically to Perturabo. "What did the storm send you to say?" asked Perturabo. "It sent us to make you an offer. There is a throne for you, Lord of Iron," said Kalek, and he shivered as he spoke. Volk noticed a flash of red on the paper-dry lips. "A throne that weeps with the tears of your enemies, and with the throne, a crown that once on your brow will make the iron of your blood eternal. You are rotting, Lord of Iron. You lay a metal on your skin and blind the killing edges closer to you, because they make you feel the strength that is bleeding out of you. You feel this truth. You know it in the fever tremble of your skin." Kalek's body was moving, his shoulders heaving, as though the muscles inside his armour were writhing even as his voice held steady. "The sickfold prince has bitten deep and festered long. The wound festers within your soul. You are dying. Your iron is rust." Perturabo did not move, but Volk thought that the shadows deepened in the hollows of his face. Kalek's convulsions ceased. His chin was wet with blood. "You resist," said Kalek. "You fight, but that only steals more from you. You seek the son of blood, the dog of bones snapping in its brass collar. Father Storm sees this. It sees and knows that if you find the Hound of the Red Sands, you will die. You are weak, and he is beyond your weakness. He will not yield. he will not obey. He will test your mettle, and it will be wanting. The Father sees, the Father knows. Kalec took a rasping breath and bowed his head. You can rise, Lord. You can be eternal. Unbreaking, unbreakable. Now, though not explicitly mentioned or named, it's pretty clear here this is Nurgle that's being mentioned. And I find it incredibly revealing how he prophesizes Perturabo's death at the hands of Angron without accepting this embrace. And yet we know Perturabo would actually lay down a beatdown for the ages against Angron. So this is perhaps the best example of all on how the so-called prophecies and truths of chaos are nothing but lies. All the so-called times the ruinous powers have whispered the truth, as always nothing more than a scheme to get their way. Extremely similar also to the entrapment and offer given to Mortarion later in the Heresy. However, while Mortarion would ultimately give in and accept the god's deal, Perturabo has no such desire to. Perturabo's answer here is beyond epic, asking if Kalec's finished, receiving a yes. Perturabo simply states good, and shoots him before anyone else even knows what's going on, vaporizing the Plague Marine to atoms. And then as Kalec's gunship tries to take off, whether to attack or evacuate, Perturabo simply launches forward and absolutely demolishes it with his bare hands. He's not even armed, and he absolutely demolishes Anastates' gunship. I mean, what an absolute tank Perturabo is. If you've never read Slaves to Darkness, I strongly recommend checking it out, as Perturabo's storyline within it is absolutely fantastic. Not only do you get him point blankly turning down Nurgle, but you then get him going on to fight the demon elevated Angron. It's beyond stellar. Rather than bow to this offer, Perturabo would instead face the storm, certain he and his legion can weather whatever comes their way. Iron within, iron without. How on earth this Perturabo would end up a demon-elevated Primarch himself, honestly, I have absolutely no idea. It's something that's going to be hugely interesting to see, his downfall and journey looking to master the Immaterium. But at least here, Perturabo gave Nurgle no doubts about his answer at all. Now, another Primarch to deny an appeal of one of the Dark Gods was Lion L. Johnson, and apparently something he had done several times before. Now, these events took place within the short story The Lion, transpiring during the events of the Dark Angels campaign against the Night Lords. And it's here the legendary Invincible Reason is assaulted and boarded by demons. In realizing the effectiveness of psychic power against these creatures, the Lion rescinds the Emperor's Nicaea edict across the Legion, famously decapitating one of his librarians, who refuses to comply. Probably the most controversial moment of L. Johnson's character throughout the Heresy. But as the Primarch is leading a counter-assault against the invading forces, he receives a vox from Corswain that he must come at once to the Warp Core, as there's something there they cannot destroy, and it wants to speak to the Primarch. It is Kairos Fateweaver, chosen greater demon of Tzeentch, and though he may not explicitly lay an offer on the table, the appeal is clear. There was something familiar about the creature's voice, like a half-remembered dream. The Lion could not place from where, But it was not the first time he had heard this. His mind stirred with vague recollections of pleading and entreaty. Yes, that is true. I have come to you before. Get out of my thoughts. The lion stepped to his left and focused on blocking the creature from his mind, mentally bringing up a shield as though he were defending himself against a physical attack. It was a trick he had learnt as he stalked Nephila on Caliban. One of the bird beast's heads followed him with its inscrutable gaze. The other stayed fixed upon Corswain. That might work in the real universe, but not here. You are in my realm now, or at least teetering upon the brink of it. You cannot ignore me this time. I do not treat with aliens, said the lion, taking a few more steps to his left, closing the gap between himself and the Nephila. Alien. Alien. There was despair in the voice. I am more than some simple creature of your universe. I am the giver and the receiver, the crux of fate, the master of the parallels. The past and the future are laid before me. Do not mistake me for some petty foe to be vanquished by mere might of arms. You have nothing to offer that I will accept. The lion was directly behind the creature now, its snake head still regarding him with an unblinking stare, while the vulture transfixed Corswain. That is not true. However, you do not desire power. That much is plain. Your ambition is woefully stunted for one of your abilities. You are happy to let your brothers dwell in the light of your father's adoration. You even sacrifice your own to stay true to the memory of what once was. And thus Kairos Fateweaver would offer the lion freedom, mentioning how the lion cares nothing for the arguments of his lessers, how their frailties annoy him, how even this war he fights is without consequence. And honestly, this interaction between the Fateweaver and El Johnson is probably the best piece of evidence that it was the lion who was the one Primarch told the truth of the Chaos Gods by the Emperor and Malkador. Not only do we have Kairos revealing he has approached the lion before, but we see the Primarch mentally raising that shield within his mind, the real psychic strength the lion appears to possess. And the offer that's placed before El Johnson for his servitude, his allegiance to Tzeentch, is freedom. A curious offer considering servitude to the Dark Gods is akin to slavery, but that's clearly what they feel would tempt him. However, of course, the offer is rejected. El Johnson would attack the demon, freeing Corswain from its control in the process, uttering the immortal line, "Did you see this coming?" as he hammers his sword into the creature's chest. There's some pretty iconic lines in the Heresy series, but El Johnson's definitely got some of the very best. That's up there with loyalty is its own reward for sure. However, regardless, with the lion denying Tzeentch, we have 3 of the 4 denied. Sanguinius turning down Khorne, Perturabo declining Nurgle, and the lion turning down Tzeentch, which all just leaves Slaanesh, she who thirsts. Now, Slaanesh acquired Fulgrim, shall we say, pretty early on, and it certainly seems like it was a match made in heaven. Though, like I said, there would be future appeals to the line of Sanguinius. And there are theories out there that Jagatai Khan was the preferred choice. However, I do tend to disagree with that, as I don't really see any solid evidence for it. Now, this theory largely stems from the notion that Fulgrim and Jagatai were somehow swapped during the scattering, that their intended planets were swapped with each other by an unknown power. And this comes from a quote by a shard of Magnus in the novel Scars. Magnus laughed. You don't want to know? That's always been your weakness. I know it all now. I could tell you the Emperor's name, and it would surprise you. I could tell you that the Fates decreed Fulgrim to be sent to Chagoris, and you to Chemos, and I could tell you which arcane force in the universe prevented it. Now, this is highly believed by many amongst the fanbase to have been the actions of the Eldari laughing god Kegarak. But even if it is, and even if they were switched, there's no real link to Slaanesh at all. And in truth, it's more likely just one of those moments in the lore designed to excite and provoke the mystery. Now, that said, Jaghatai and the Scars do come up against the demonic forces of Slaanesh within the novel The Path of Heaven, as the Scars are desperately attempting to return to Terra, and Jaghatai himself is confronted by the greater demon of Slaanesh, a keeper of secrets. However, unlike the other encounters we have discussed today, there is absolutely no offer made to Jaghatai at all. The Keeper of Secrets appears, and the fight is on. The minions of Slaanesh aren't here to tempt Jaghatai, they're here to stop him. And it's another epic Primarch fight, as seems to be the case when it comes to Primarchs facing greater demons. You're guaranteed an awesome moment. And honestly, Jaghatai's could well be the cream of the crop. As weaponless, he rips out the greater demon's heart, declaring for the Emperor as he does so. It's a spine-tingling moment. If you have never read Scars and The Path of Heaven, read them now. Trust me, Chris Raitt delivered an absolutely sublime development of Jaghatai and his Legion. You will absolutely come out the other side loving the both of them. I guarantee you. However, for our conversation today, for all that awesomeness, again, there's no offer from the demon, and no real evidence to say Slaanesh desired Jaghatai, at least more than any other Primarch, and certainly not more than Fulgrim. Now, there are some other universal chaos approaches out there. Erebus to Guilliman, the United Pantheon to Sanguinius within Ruinstorm. However, for the gods individually, these are the prime occurrences and approaches, pre-Siege of Terra at least. And I have to say, I find Nurgle's approach to Perturabo and Tzeentch's to Lion L. Johnson to be the most fascinating for me, because Nurgle is so iconic with the Death Guard. This was such a surprise, and I would never have linked Tzeentch with Lion L. Johnson. However, then when you begin to really think about it, you can kind of see why. That convoluted mind he has, its penchant for secrets and unknown motives, you can kind of see Tzeentch's appeal, whereas Sanguinius with Khorne is much more straightforward. I guess the question is how different the heresy could have been had these three Primarchs accepted those offers. Or even the four, if an approach had have been made to Jaghatai. And I guess those are the questions to end it with. How do you feel the heresy could have been different had these Primarchs accepted those offers? Why do you think the gods desired those Primarchs more than perhaps others? And do you think it would have affected their later approaches to the Primarchs they became identified with? Angron to the Blood God, Mortarion to Nurgle, and Magnus to Tzeentch. Even Fulgrim with Slaanesh. As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.